On January 15th, 1999, I shot and killed and tried to shoot and kill his 3 friends. I was tried for the death penalty, but because I lied at trial, I coached witnesses, and I got rid of evidence, they found me guilty of second-degree murder and was given 15 years to life in the California prison system. But I wasn't born a murderer. I was born in Vietnam, and we lost our country, so I came to the US as a toddler. My father was a military officer for South Vietnam, so he had come to train with the US forces, so he knew what the country was like. My mother had never seen snow, so they decided, my father decided to settle us in Provo, Utah. My father was my hero growing up. His first job was as a custodian. He worked a night shift. The first thing he bought was a bike so he'd get to work faster. Then he created the Vietnamese Refugee Association. I remember going on these long car rides with him to neighboring states, and I get all my life's questions answered. He was helping people adjust to their new homeland. I didn't understand at the time what my father was trying to teach me because these car rides felt so boring, and he wasn't getting paid for it. We just fill out endless documents, government documents. And my father told me, well, this is what I do for the community. And I didn't understand, why is his job not paying him? Utah was a beautiful place, but I did experience what I now know to be racism. One of my earliest incidents of anger and shame, me and my younger brother, I was about 8 years old, we were playing in the streams. We had built these rafts out of popsicle sticks, and we put our G.I. Joes on it and we followed them down the streams. Some older kids and what looked like adults began throwing rocks down at us and told us, get out of our country, go home. The fence looked so big, they were so far away, and that day I guess we felt brave. We told them, come and make us. They jumped the fence and chased us down. Me and my brother clambered up the other side. Somewhere along the way, I dropped my G.I. Joes. I stopped to pick it up. My brother turned around to face our aggressors. They shoved him to the ground, punched him, began throwing dirt in his mouth. I stood there and did nothing. When we got home, my father just looked at me in that quiet way of his, and he says, you're supposed to protect your family. How did you let this happen to your brother? I was so ashamed, and from that day forth, I remember me and my brother would just go into rages when something happens to one of us. My father was diagnosed with leukemia that same year. And a couple years later, we decided to move out here to Cali because some of his family lived out here. California is so different from Utah because now for the first time, I went to school with Hispanics, with Blacks, with other Asians. But yet, I also feel I did not fit in. I remember getting teased because I couldn't speak Vietnamese well. My father died from leukemia when I was 13, on the day of my first communion. I remember that morning, I walked into my bathroom. My sister pokes her head out the shower, said, Dad died last night, but we're not supposed to know. And I know it was my plan and my brother and my younger sisters. It was all of our plan, okay, this is gonna be our special day. We're eating the bread and we get to pray. All of us just wanted to pray for my dad to live. So imagine how bizarre that day was. We're in church. The priest is talking about how joyous this is, and we're pretending not to know that my dad's dead because my grandma and my mom didn't tell us yet. And we thought that's what we were supposed to do. My faith died at 13 years old that day. Within 4 years, by the age of 17, I was arrested for the first time. And I went down a long, dark path. I'm ashamed to say that I had no sense of remorse for the first 10, 11 years of my prison sentence. I used to justify it, say it wasn't my fault, or it was my life or theirs. That's what happens when you're in a gang. Luckily, I've always been a bookworm, and that's what provided escape for me. I have this tendency when I read, I go down these rabbit trails of books. Like I'll open the book, I read it, and get back to the acknowledgments. And I see what authors influenced them or what other books influenced them. And I read those books. So somewhere 2009, 2010, I was on this rabbit trail. And then I became fascinated with these books on the saints, particularly stories about saints that had failed in some way or another. Of course, that took me down other rabbit trails, and then I get fascinated with books on spirituality and mindfulness and personal development. So I remember it was one day on the prison yard, my head filled with these teachings and lessons of the saints. And I told myself, like, why does prison have to be punishment? Why can't this be a place where I can remake myself, even if I'm supposed to die in here? And of course, the answer comes back from the universe. I can. And I remember that exact moment. The sun was barely coming up over the hills, and I could feel the warmth. In the little blades of grass, I could see the individual drops of dew. And up above me in the razor wire, I heard a sparrow chirping. And I tell everyone, like, the sparrow's probably been chirping the whole prison term, and I never heard him. But that day, from that day, I heard it. And from that day forth, prison no longer was this cold, harsh, ugly place. It became a place where I felt I could remake myself. I saw the other men around me as some of them much further along, some of them perhaps not even awakened, but we were there. We were just all on a journey. First thing I did was I checked in with the therapist, and I began mourning my father's death. 25 years later, I began that process. Of course, being the bookworm, I got fascinated with the grief and loss process, especially Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model. And then as I was reading it, and I realized, wait, there's loss going on all around me. Every guy in here is facing some form of loss, whether that's losing a family or loved one, they can't talk about it, being uprooted and getting transferred to a prison, and now they've lost friends they'll never see again. They may have lost loved ones that just left them or kids. So I put together a syllabus and I submitted it to the prison psychologists, and they loved it. They said, yes. So we launched the prison's first ever grief and loss group. When I was in that group, I saw for the first time how much meaning it brought to me, how fulfilled I felt for once in my life. And I felt like I'm alive. And then it dawned on me, this is what my dad was talking about creating some type of community where you can help and you could help others. So that got me thinking about, okay, what other groups do I want to join? What other groups do I want to create? I remember one of my first NPR interviews. The NPR people came in, they were talking to me about groups that I was involved with. They were really fascinated, like, how did you guys create these groups? What's the intent? What's the purpose? And then inevitably, the interviewer asked me, what are you in prison for? And up to that point in my life, whenever someone asked me, I always said, oh, it's a gang murder, it's this, it's that, because I justified it in that way. But during that time, I was reading books on like personal responsibility and owning and how the importance and the power of words. So instead of making a whole bunch of excuses, I said, I'm in prison for murder. And she looked at me, and everything in me wanted to explain. Like, I was so scared, like, what is she gonna think? But the longer I stayed quiet, the more liberated I started to feel. Like, yes, I committed murder, but I'm not a murderer. I'm no longer that same person. I saw myself, I'm no longer that same person. So from that day forth, whenever anyone asked me what I went to prison for, I just said, I'm here for the murder of another human being. I remember one of the conversations I had with my mom. This is in 2015, right before my parole hearing. And she's sitting there in the visiting room with me, telling me, I hope you can go home. I hope they let you out. You know, you deserve to go home. And I said, Mom, like, I don't deserve, like, and she goes, yes, you deserve. You've done so much good work. So I had to tell her, I said, Mom, you do realize what I'm in prison for, right? And she said, yes. I said, let me ask you this. If I had been killed 16 years ago, and you go to the parole board of the man that killed me, and he tells you he's changed his life, he tells you that he's created groups and now he's doing good, would you let that man go home? She said no. So of course she cried, and I cried too. But I think that's where my mom finally understood that I should not be deserving of anything. I've been home now since that parole hearing in 2015. The following year, I was given a Peace Fellowship Award for my work in the community. I launched my first company 6 months after I got out. Still running to this day. It's a commercial cleaning company. 6 employees, 4 of them are also formerly incarcerated. I tell everyone, those are my best workers by far. Of course, the world changed as we know it during COVID. Overnight, like within 3 weeks, we lost 70% of our contracts. So of course, I'm a small business owner. I filed for the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. As I was filling it out online, on page 5, it says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Right when I clicked yes, it grayed out. I could no longer continue. So I sat there and I was like, how is this fair? How is my tax-paying dollars and those of my team members were the ones that were supporting this? But why, because of something I did, is my rest of my team being punished? I've done my time. I'm not sure what happened. CBS, Money Watch found out. CNN found out. They called me for interviews. PBS, and the next thing I know, the ACLU contacts me and said they'd like to file a class action lawsuit against the SBA for discrimination. Then Defy Ventures, the nonprofit I work for, filed the main suit on behalf of all small business owners with criminal histories. And we got the SBA to change the language. They could no longer discriminate on a small business owner with a criminal history. In September 2020, during COVID, my book came out, Sparrow and the Razor Wire. It hit bestseller status on that first week. I've donated over 2,700 books into prison, I think 300 into San Quentin. And today I work as the executive director at Defy Ventures in Southern California. So I oversee our program delivery over 7 prisons, 3 transitional homes, a whole post-release program. One of the best things about my job is to tell a man or woman coming home, welcome home. It's not lost on me. My father was helping people adjust to their new homeland. And in a way, that's what I get to do. I feel I'm perfectly at the place where I'm supposed to be. But despite these successes, there's still something that weighs heavy on me. Back in 2011, when the lights first came on for me, I wrote a letter to the mother of the man I killed. And at first, when I wrote the letter, I was like, okay, let me write it. And it was 3-4 pages long. I was saying all these eloquent sounding words. But then I realized, what can I really say to the mother of the man that I killed? And I realized there's nothing I could really say. But I wanted to at least say something. So I chopped it up, cut it down to about 6-7 sentences, and I sent it off to the Office of Victim Services. They returned it to me, which meant that she never received the letter. I remember the guys on the yard at the time, they were starting to parole lifers, so they told me, this is good. This is good news for you. Because now there's a chance that you're not going to have victims show up at your parole hearing. But for me, I felt conflicted. I wanted her to receive this letter. And part of me also felt conflicted because I wanted to also go home, and I didn't know how to feel about all this. So I still have that letter. And I brought it with me. I'd like to share it with you. It's dated November 5th, 2011. I want you to know I am truly sorry for taking your son's life. I'm sorry for forever tainting the way you may see the world and taking the joy out of it. I pray that in some small way, my words could provide some measure of healing for you. I want you to know that I am not the same person that committed this violent and senseless act. And I'm living a life from here on out to honor the man I will be forever paying my penance for. Your son. Thank you.